Our changing climate has put the global food supply in the spotlight. The need to increase productivity while reducing greenhouse gas emissions has never been so urgent. In Denmark, numerous innovations are unfolding, driven by collaborative partnerships and public-private investments. Decades of environmental regulation have primed the Danish food and agriculture sector for ever better efficiency, producing higher yields with fewer resources and emissions. With a national ambition to achieve climate neutrality by 2045, innovation across the entire food value chain is crucial. Danish farmers often serve as living labs to help innovation on its way. Thanks to their involvement in pilot trials, the latest innovative technologies like advanced manure handling and precision farming, reducing nitrogen loss, are rapidly taken into widespread use. New climate-efficient crops are both capturing and storing CO2 in the soil and securing yields in the face of drought. As a major source of greenhouse gas emissions, livestock production is a particular innovation area. Here, methane from cow babs is one of the challenges in focus. In livestock production, the goal is to reduce the carbon footprint of feed. Danish breeding organizations, feed industries, and research institutions are collaboratively making strides in this area. Within food processing, loss and waste prevention and plant-based foods are key to making the best possible use of all produce. Danish ingredient companies are effective partners in this regard, keeping food products fresh and safe to eat and creating value from food side streams. By unlocking the protein in cereal crops, biosolutions are also inspiring the development of sustainable plant-based foods. In pursuit of climate neutrality, decarbonizing food processing is underway. This is where Danish technology suppliers are a great support, enabling food producers to move towards renewable energy and electrification. Denmark's long tradition for cross-sector research and innovation is a firm foundation for solving today's climate challenges. Collaboration accelerates change. Join our journey towards the solutions of tomorrow.
I would like to start with a warm welcome of Mr. Jacob Jensen, Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries. Also, all our speakers with us today, and all of you joining from all over the world. I can tell you that we have more than 26 nationalities joining us today, so this is really great. It's a hot topic that we're going to talk about today. We are very pleased to welcome all of you, and just to mention a few of the nationalities that we have with us today. This is among others the United States, it's the United Kingdom, it's Vietnam, and it's also Kenya and New Zealand and many more. As I said, more than 26 nations are listening in today. Welcome, all of you. So my name is Lise Walbom, and I'm the CEO of Food Nation, which is a public-private partnership. And we have, all of us in Food Nation, been looking very much forward to this live streaming from our visitor center here in Copenhagen. Today's Global Food Talks is held in conjunction with the United Nations World Soil Day. And the aim of this United Nations World Soil Day is to celebrate the importance of soil as a critical component of the natural system and as a vital contributor to human well-being. So this Global Food Talk seeks to address ideas and solutions from across the whole agri-food value chain on how to ensure and contribute to healthy soils in the future. We believe that by curious conversations and by sharing experiences at ambitious meetings like this Global Food Talk, we can progress with the green transition and promote resilient soil. So Denmark has an age-old tradition for being an agriculture and food nation. So today we leverage this expertise to drive meaningful change, addressing the pressing climate and biodiversity challenge that we all face, no matter where we are in the world. Our esteemed guests at this Global Food Talk will share their insights and experiences, and they have the aim of inspiring all of us to take action, again, no matter where in the world you are. So with this introduction, let's talk, and let today's Global Food Talk inspire and initiate actions all over the world. Today's speakers are Mr. Jacob Jensen, Danish Minister for Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, Lifeng, Secretary of the Global Soil Partnership and Director of the Land and Water Division at FAO. Also, we have with us Mr. Jacob Sterling, Head of Sustainability Advisory at Preferred by Nature, and Jørgen Olesen, Professor and Head of Department at Agroecology at Aarhus University. On the business side, we have with us Derek Bartlem, Executive Vice President and CSO at DLF, and also Mr. Simon Haldrup, CEO of Agreena. So these are all powerful guests with deep insights into the national and global agriculture and food systems, and all with high ambitions for a more sustainable future. With their insights on food production, the agriculture sector, the research, and how companies and organizations are working towards new ways of facing the challenges and how to accelerate the green transition. Because of this, I've been looking very much forward to presenting our opening speaker, the Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, Mr. Jacob Jensen, who will give his view on the importance of acting. Welcome, Minister Jacob Jensen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be part of this Global Food Talk, how we ensure healthy soils as the foundation of sustainable food for all. Today's Global Food Talk is held in connection with the UN's World Soil Day. World Soil Day is an important reminder of the fact that the health of our planet depends on the conditions of its soils. As Danish Minister for Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, it is my ambition to foster initiatives within the agri-food sector and to assist in achieving the ambitious goals that we have set for the sector. This Global Food Talk could not be more relevant, nor more urgently needed. As the global food supply is under pressure from climate change, population growth, geopolitical instability, and the increasing reliance on limited natural resources. Healthy soils are the foundation for 95% of our food, hold over 25% of the planet's biodiversity, and serve as the largest carbon reservoir on land. Healthy soils are more resilient to climate change and can help mitigate flooding risks and combat droughts. However, today it is estimated by the EU Soil Observatory that more than 60% of soils in the EU are unhealthy and thereby unable to deliver these key ecosystem services. We have a responsibility to protect and to restore soils for future generations. Once soils are degraded, they can take centuries to rebuild. The scale of challenges we face today is so vast that business as usual is not an option. The path forward demands collaboration and actions on a global scale. In Denmark, we have set ambitious goals for the transition to a greener and more sustainable future, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% in 2030 compared to the 1990 level, and to be carbon neutral by 2050. A long tradition for research and innovation and strong private-public partnerships makes Denmark a leading player in the green transition of food, agriculture, and land use. Just recently, the Danish government and partners from agricultural business organizations, environmental organizations, and leading industry have reached an agreement for a long-term transition of the Danish food and agricultural production. The agreement shows that it is possible to bring relevant stakeholders on board and to agree on how to efficiently reduce emissions in the agricultural sector in a socially fair and an economically sound way. A political agreement was reached on the 18th of November 2040. Our planet has enough resources to feed us all if we do it right. There are no easy solutions, no easy fix, and the journey will take time. Therefore, let us collaborate across nations so we together can convert this global challenge into an opportunity for ourselves and for the coming generations. Platforms like Global Food Talk play an important role in this ongoing journey, establishing a framework for knowledge sharing and inspirations for future actions. Together, we can identify a pathway for solutions to ensure a sustainable food system. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm sure that this was valuable insights. It was also alarming numbers that we heard from the Minister today. And it was motivating, not least, to hear how Denmark, both now and for the next many years, are taking ambitious steps to a green transition in food production. So I'm certain that many of these points, not least in the new political agreement, will inspire, hopefully a lot of you, to take even more action. So with this focus in this agreement for creating more nature, promoting biodiversity and taking low-lying soils out of production, will spark ideas and inspire to meaningful action. We also heard the Minister emphasize the importance of collaboration, both amongst the stakeholders in Denmark, but certainly also across borders. So this is a strong reminder that collaboration is key if we want to take a serious step forward. So let's move on in the program now, and let's address specific potentials for collaborating, as the Minister just pointed to, as well as highlighting new actions and inspirations through this talk. So now it is my distinct pleasure to present our keynote speaker, Mr. Lifeng, who is Secretary of the Global Soil Partnership and Director of the Land and Water Division at FAO. Mr. Lifeng is responsible for leading FAO's work on soil, land and water and geospatial and climate financing through partnership with the Adaptation Fund, and he's acting as the FAO focal point on UNCCD Convention and Ramsar Convention. In short, the essence of Mr. Lifeng's work is to promote sustainable practices through international cooperations. So it is with great pleasure that I give the word to Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you please confirm again? You can hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well, Mr. Lee. It's perfectly fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And apologize for that because I'm attending the UNCCD COP16, and it's hard to really find a quiet place, but I managed to do that. Firstly, let me really thank the organizer of this event to invite me and invite FAO to join this very important global food talk. And Your Excellency, the Minister, really I'm really inspired by your visionary actions and your personal commitment to work not only within your own country, but also through the international collaboration to really save the soils of the world. You highlight exactly the importance of the soils. Today is the UN World Soil Day, and every year FAO has the mandate to have to organize the global celebration. And this year it's the first time we organized the hybrid celebration from Bangkok, and then linked with the COP16 here at the Riyadh. As Your Excellency mentioned, soils matters. Soils not only produce 95% of the food to us, and soils host the life, as the minister pointed out, and soils also play important role in the water cycle, absorb water in the rainy season, and then release water in the dry season. And according to our experts in FAO, if we could manage the soils in a sustainable manner, the soils can have to sequester much more carbon, can have to sequester 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emission from the agricultural land at the moment. That is massive. That is massive. However, soils has always been unrecognized, unappreciated in many places. That's why the soils are really facing unprecedented threats. Here we at the UNCCT, we focus on the land degradation, drought, and the desertification. If you look at land degradation, indeed, over 60% of human-induced land degradation happens on agricultural land, happens on cropland and pasture land. If we consider the forest agriculture or agroforestry, then that percentage could go even higher than 80%. So that's why it is important that for FAO, for the agriculture, to be represented at the UNCCT COP, to work with the parties to look at the land degradation challenge and find the solutions. Because for us, the degradation, land degradation, soil degradation, they are not an environmental matter. They are development matter. They are developing challenge. And having said that, certainly through the global collaboration, through the international collaboration, we have great hope that we can address this challenge. And here at the COP, indeed, this afternoon, the Committee of Science and Technology will, for the first time, discuss a draft decision on agri-food systems. If that decision gets endorsed, this will be also for the first time that the agri-food systems is integrated, is recognized, is included in a COP decision by the UNCCT, followed by the UNFCCC COP last year in UAE. So we are really optimistic that the parties here are really seriously look at how agriculture could also contribute to the solutions of land degradation neutrality. So what are the global platforms or international collaboration can help to address such challenge? I could share with you that within FAO, we hosted the Global Soil Partnership, which was established in 2012. And it is the global platform, a partnership that's have to develop a strong collaboration among the member countries of FAO, but also with the non-state actors, the universities, the NGOs, the private sector. And overall, we want to really to build a world where soils are healthy and resilient, ensuring the sustainable provision of ecosystem functions and the services for all, leaving no one behind. And to this end, the Global Soil Partnership endorsed an action framework by 2030, which included a target to at least restore or improve the soil health of 50% of the world's soils. And this partnership already included 164 focal points of FAO members and over 700 partners worldwide. And also it consists of 7 regional partnerships, that's including the European and Central Asia Soil Partnership as well. And we also set up 7 technical networks to advance our works on soils. Through the Global Soil Partnership, we further advance some of the global knowledge product and also the global standard or guidelines. For example, we published the World Soil Resource Report in 2015. The next edition will be published next year. We developed the voluntary guidelines for sustainable soil management. We also developed the International Code of Conduct for sustainable use and management of fertilizers. And the Global Soil Partnership also worked with all FAO members and revised the World Soil Charter a few years ago. And as you may be aware, the theme of this year's World Soil Day is caring for soil, measure, monitor, manage. Because if we don't measure, if we don't monitor our soils, we cannot manage our soils. That's why FAO has been partnership with also countries to advance the data and information systems for soils. Data and information of soils, they are like the NDAs of the soils. And we need that rich data and also robust information so that we can assist the farmers to make their decision regarding their farming activities, regarding their crop selection, irrigation, their fertilizer choice, and also the crops that they want to plant. So the soil data and information are crucial for us to improve soil management in the future. And with the support of the United States and also Japan, we launched the soil mapping project that covers 5 African countries and also 2 Central African countries. And through this soil mapping project, we're aiming to support the countries to conduct comprehensive soil survey and then build the national soil labs and also the national digital soil maps and information systems, as well as to pilot fertilizers that's needed for the soils. And based on all this information, we will put them into a decision supporting system so that the farmers access those information either through internet, through their mobile phones, or through the extension centers. And those information will be made available, those recommendations will be easily accessed by all the farmers in the future. And certainly, we also are supporting other countries to look at how we can improve the soil management from a climate mitigation perspective. And we already pilot recarbonization of the soils in a number of the countries to help them to improve the soil management so the soils can not only produce more and better food, but also sequester more carbons on the ground. Certainly, we have been deliver all these programs, support the global soil partnerships by engage in the global policy forums like this COP, but also engage through the FAO governing bodies, through the global soil partnerships annual meeting, and also the 7 technical networks and the global soil partnership. So those are the few examples I'd like to share with you for this opportunity to speaking to you. And again, soil matters. Let's work together and implement the sustainable soil management measures. Let's take care of the soils so the soils will be able to take care of Earth in the future. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee, for sharing your profound work at FAO and being with us directly from COP16 in Riyadh. We are very grateful for you taking your time out of your busy calendar right now. And also thank you for highlighting the theme of this UN Soil Day, caring for soils, measure, monitor, manage, and highlighting how you are working with this in this specific and very important way. So, Mr. Lee, let's just take a little more question to your work. So, given the FAO extensive experience in fostering these international partnerships, you mentioned a few of them. What do you see as the most urgent next steps ensuring the global alignment for soil health initiatives? And also, how can the different stakeholder groups best contribute to take these next steps?
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of global alignment or leverage global commitment, certainly there's a huge gap. For example, here we talk about the 3 real conventions, both the Convention on Desertification, the Convention on Biodiversity, and also the Framework Convention on Climate Change. And clearly from our view, also mentioned by His Excellency the Minister, soils can contribute to all of them. Soils can, sequester carbon, contribute to the climate mitigation. Soil provides the homes for over, in fact, in our statistics, over above the 60% of the biodiversity on this planet. And the soils certainly, contribute to the restoration of degraded land. And certainly it's also contributed to food security and water security. So we have to position the soils in these global forums and then make sure that the importance of soils are being reflected in the global decisions, but also in the national decisions. Because at the end of the day, all these global commitment targets need to be implemented at the national level. And we see there are few countries that are doing well, but in most of the countries, the national level strategies on climate change, on energy, on food, on land, on water, they have not really talked with each other. In many countries, we say, they are not consistent, they're not fully aligned with each other. That's why we fully encourage, the countries really to open up and then to build a cross-ministerial process and then to make sure all the national implementing strategies talks with each other, build upon each other's strength. And for that, certainly the stakeholders, whether it's the private sector, CSOs, can play a significant role. And for example, through the Global Soil Partnership, we rely on the scientists to provide the insights, the know-how, the data and information. And as I mentioned, through the Global Soil Partnership, we worked with hundreds of universities. We also set up one of the techno network. It's called the Global Soil Lab Network, which include more than 1,000 labs. And most of the labs, they are from the university. And certainly we have to engage with the private sector and the small-scale farmers, because at the end of the day, the farmers, they are the steward of the soil management. They need the information. If we could share our information, our data, our solutions on the daily basis, it's them take care of our soils. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. And I really hope that our Global Food Talk here today will inspire all over the world to follow up on this important topic. Because we really have the different stakeholder groups that you are addressing here. We have them with us in the studio, so that's what we will continue in this program right here and now. So thank you once again for joining us, and I hope that we will talk to you again at a later stage. Have a good day.
Great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we will now move on in the program, and our next 2 inspiring guests, they will bring in their perspectives from respectively academia and NGO, and they will be sharing their views on how agriculture and food sector can secure healthy soils for the future. So we are now moving on with some of these important stakeholders that Mr. Lee mentioned to us just before. So I'm happy that with us today we have Mr. Jakob Sterling, Head of Sustainability Advisory at the organization Preferred by Nature. This is a not-for-profit organization that builds bridges between stakeholders across the whole value chain and to drive sustainable practices, among others, within also public-private partnerships. So Preferred by Nature support business in sectors like forestry, agriculture, and they offer tailored services that enhance supply chain traceability, ensure compliance with sustainability standards, and provide responsible sourcing frameworks. Also, Preferred by Nature support with sustainability certification, risk management, and capacity building services. So Jakob has been with Preferred by Nature for nearly 9 years, and before that served as a head of sustainability, or in that period served as head of sustainability advisory for almost 2 years. And over a decade has been working with this specific area and gained a lot of experience both from the NGO side but also from the commercial sector, focusing on biodiversity, sustainable forestry, and climate change. Also in this Fireside talk, we have Mr. Jørgen Olesen, Professor and Head of Department of Agroecology of Aarhus University. Jørgen has been at Aarhus University for over 21 years and for the past 5 years as head of the Agroecology department. In 2007, Jørgen was rewarded a Nobel Peace Prize for his work as a lead author for the IPCC fourth assessment report. And Jørgen is also a member of the Commission on Climate Change Policy under the Danish Ministry of Climate and Energy, the Concito think tank task force on climate change under Nordic Coordination Body for Agriculture, and a member of the Board of Representatives of the Danish Technology Council. So, Jørgen and Jakob, please join me in the studio. You are waited right here. Welcome, both of you. It is a great pleasure to have you with me. And I think it's such a great set-off we have following Mr. Lee's speech, where he addressed the importance of both research and also the way I look at across value chains, engaging all the different kinds of stakeholders to create the necessary change. So I will open with the question of this session, saying how can agriculture and food sector secure healthy soils for the future? And Jakob, I will start with you, because I would like you to elaborate and take us on the journey on the value chains. How can the transformation to more sustainable value chains contribute to create more healthy soils of the future?
Thanks for that question. And as you mentioned in the introduction, we work with companies across the food value chain, from certifying farms to working with the supply chain actors to also advising on how retailers and food manufacturers demand sustainable foods for the production of food, or sustainable material to produce foods. And we very much believe that you need to work at all those three levels. So we need to work on the demand side, on actually having clear demand signals from the market that these are the types of foods that the buyers will want to buy. And on the supply side, we also need to enable that it can actually happen. And then, of course, we need to make sure that the chain is not broken, that it gets all the way to the market. That's our theory of change, if you will, in the way that we work both with certification and advisory, that you need to work with all the partners. And certification is one tool where you can, in a credible way, live up to certain minimum standards. But what we see more and more is the move towards a regenerative agriculture, where you do not just have the minimum standard. That can be hard enough, I would say, but you don't stop with a minimum standard, but you have a vision to progress over time so that things become more and more sustainable, more and more regenerative when we talk agriculture.
And Jacob, we will get back to you and the value chain and how to create that important change. But we will also have to include the knowledge, the research knowledge, the measurements, as the theme is for this UN Soil Day. I'll just find it here again. It's measure, monitor, and manage. And I really think that's might be a good clue for you, Jørgen, because what we're looking into is maybe a gap between the scientific research and how this knowledge actually come out to the smallhold farmers and farmers in general. Could you elaborate on that one?
I think we need to recognize that soil is a complex thing, right? It has physical, chemical, and biological properties. And they also, of course, interact with how we manage and use the soils and those factors that also environment has as a pressure on those. It is a complex issue, and it's also related to the local specificities, right? Which makes it even more complex. But you're right. One thing is, of course, to understand and be able to measure what are the healthiness, so to speak, of soils. What are the threats locally to those? What is it you need to manage? Because if eventually one size does not fit all, or none, really. So we need to improve on that point, and we need to use technologies to do so. And this is maybe also where some of the digital technologies, remote sensing, and so on, comes into the picture. Looking at proximal sensing of this, because we can't just take hundreds of thousands of soil samples and manage it. It will be all too expensive, laborious, and not really gain us anything. So we need to have other ways to look at and understand and monitor soils. We're looking into whether we can use such proximal sensing of various types along with artificial intelligence and all of the novel technologies to do so.
So just to begin with, Jørgen, to mention maybe the most important thing as you see it with your extensive experience, what is the most important thing to make sure that important knowledge go all the way out to the farmers?
I think, first of all, it's important for the farmers to understand that soil is a living thing. Soil is something that also changes over time and which has impacts on how well we can manage our crops and the environmental sustainability and so on of the agricultural system. So that's the first thing. The next thing is for that farmer also to understand what is it that is potentially threatening for me on my farm, on my soils, and then what can we do?
And of course, there's so many different approaches to gain that knowledge and so on. So maybe we should hear a little bit more on that from you, Jacob. What's your experience with applying that knowledge to creating change in the value chain? Where do you see it work in a very good manner?
Yeah, and we have a good example, I think, from here in Europe, where we are working with companies such as Nestlé, PepsiCo, Prosecco, the wine manufacturer, on promoting regenerative agriculture in their supply landscapes in Poland, Hungary, and Italy. And the concept is so this is, you can say, in the concept is very far from the soil science, but of course builds on that. It has to build on that. But the concept is that the big brands that I just mentioned, they come with basically their goals, their demand specifications for what they want to achieve in their supply landscapes in terms of regenerative agriculture. How do they want to improve the soil, how they want to do certain things. And it can be boiled down to very specific measures like cover crops and reduced tillage or whatever it might be. And then we facilitate contact with the farmers, with specific farmers who is then say, okay, we would like to do that. And then we facilitate a payment directly between the big brands and the farmers. So unlike with eco-labeling or other types of certification labeling, the premium doesn't go through the supply chain and somehow sometimes get a little bit lost in the supply chain. The premium, if you will, the payment for the environmental service go directly from the ones who needs that service to the ones who's delivering it. And that's proven to be a strong concept. For the farmer, it's voluntary and they get that paid directly. For the brands or the big companies, the funders of the program, it's very easy for them to communicate the impact that they are creating because they know exactly what it is. It's measured, it's verified.
And you're documenting it through your systems.
Yes, the agreements are made, then the farmers, as they conduct the activities as agreed, it's monitored, and then the payout is happening. So it's a pretty good system, we believe, and something that we think is quite scalable and which we believe will scale.
And do you believe, is it your experience that the farmers to create these different changes in the way of running their business, farm business, do they have enough knowledge to do this, to make this change?
Typically not. It's the farmers that join these programs are often willing to do it and has a keen interest because, as I said, it's on a voluntary basis at this point, and we're still early in the process. We're only working in these 3 countries with approximately 200 farmers or farms of different sizes. But they do have knowledge gaps. So an integral part of the program is also the training. So they say, all right, so what does that mean? How do we do that in practice? And how do we apply the new knowledge that the universities are creating or developing into practices that are, practical on the ground?
Which is, of course, the reason why I have to ask you, Jørgen.
Could I come with a comment on that?
Yes.
Right, because I was in a project a few years ago where we also looked into this fertility of soils. That was before regenerative farming.
Okay.
So we looked at fertility of soils and also looking at what could farmers do to sort of do their own diagnosis of soil. And we looked at very different types of indicators and whatever. The thing we came up with was a spade. Right?
A spade, yeah.
A spade,
that's not a new tool, right?
No, it's not really a new tool.
But
not really a new technology.
To simply take a sample of the soil down through the sort of plow
How
layer,
deep?
40
centimeters.
40 centimeters, so that you also will have that plow layer if you have that. And then also with some guidelines on how to, because that means you look at the soil. And for the farmer or advisor to get an understanding of the soil.
So Jørgen, I think we need you to take us a little closer on, from a scientific perspective, what actions can be taken at farm level to create this more healthy soil?
Some of it actually comes through also the principles that we have with regenerative farming, because they are designed to sort of re-establish healthiness of soil. And some of it is to minimize soil disturbance. That's why we talk about no-till farming. In some cases, that can develop other problems, right? So it may also be connected to the need to loosen soils in some cases. That depends on the type of soil we have. Of course. Also. The other thing is to maintain a cover on the soil. That protects against erosion, both wind and water erosion. So it can be growing crops, cover crops, but also leaving residues on the top of the soil. That in combination also gives more input of plant material in the top layer of the soil, which then builds or fuels the biodiversity of the
Builds
soil.
up the organic matter.
It builds up organic matter in the top part of the, which is beneficial also for regulation of pests and so on. Sometimes it can also fuel other problems like diseases. So you need to manage this with crop rotations as well. So some of this actually comes in packages. It's not only about the soil, it's also about how you manage the crops and the rotation. So you need a holistic perspective.
What also was I heard Mr. Lee say that managing soil in this way actually has a broad way of
so it's also about diversity in the crops and how we grow them. That's part of the package.
Thank you very much, Jørgen. So Jacob, you're working with so many different companies creating this demand for change.
Yes.
And you're working with the farmers on the other hand, creating change in big land areas. So if you should give some advice to business leaders who would like to create this demand, what kind of advice would you give for accelerating this change?
Yes. I mean, first of all, I would like to just reflect briefly on a trend that we see, because there's a lot of regulations coming right now with the EU deforestation regulation, CSRD, CSRD. It's being talked a lot about. And we are seeing more and more companies that sort of begin to fully understand the necessity of knowing their supply chain. So having supply chain visibility, not to the first supplier, but to the last supplier, the one who's actually producing on the land. So I think that's the first piece of advice. The days are over where you can sort of get away with just knowing who you buy stuff from and then take their word for what it is. And that's tied to regulation, but it also goes beyond that. Then I would say, so that would be I would say the minimum requirement that you would have to do, which is actually tied to regulation that either is enforced or is just around the corner. The next step I would say is to consistently send demand signals for living up to certain minimum standards. So this could be certification schemes like eco-labels or Rainforest Alliance or other organic labels and so forth, but set a minimum standard that is, and do it consistently. And the last bit is, of course, then the continuous improvement with the regenerative agriculture, where it's not about meeting a minimum standard, but it's about setting in motion a process that would continuously improve over time. And a different thing, another twist we also see to it is a change from niche markets to mainstream, because not long ago, I think that most were managing their supply chains on the green side, on the green input to cater for the green segments of their customers. We also see more and more that big companies are managing their supply chains much more holistically from a risk management perspective, because they understand that it's good for resilience in their supply chain if they have a supply chain that is based more on regenerative agriculture, for example, than where they know where things are coming from and so forth. For investor demands, general reputational, basically risk management also. So it's not just to serve the niche; it's also to serve the broad spectrum. Not necessarily labeling it as a green, but just knowing that we have moved the base up to a level where we are more comfortable that we can continue doing it.
That was a long and very profound advice, Jacob. Thank you very much for that. If I can just sum up, I would say long-term perspective on your decision making.
Absolutely.
And you have to have the value chain perspective.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of companies who are still trying to manage their sustainability efforts to do the bare minimum what they can get away with today and yesterday. They need to look beyond that and think about what is the likely demand of me in 3 to 5 years, at least, if not even longer.
So Jørgen, of course, also from a scientific perspective, I mean, there's so many elements in creating these healthy soils. And what would be your best advice, not only to business leaders, but in general, as we heard Mr. Lee say we should engage ourselves in cross-national conventions, and you have been working with this international level for so many years, Jørgen. How can we move on?
I think it's important. I think we should talk about soil literacy, right? Understanding soils. Next year in Denmark, public schools will be gaining literacy on soils because we'll have a mass experiment. It's called a mass experiment, where all schools will have the opportunity to engage in this, take soil samples, submit it, and get information back. And then we also build a common map in Denmark on what is the status of soils in Denmark. So that's about building an understanding of the importance of soil, because I think you need in order to care for soil, right? We need to understand soil and also understand the importance of the healthiness of soil. So build it into the mindset is some of the first thing I think we need to do. And then, of course, there's massive things we still don't understand fully about soils. And as new technologies come on board, I mean, now we're starting to look into the genetics of soil, and there's a lot of things we don't know there because it is a complex thing. But we also have great opportunities, I think, with the new technologies that are coming in. But again, soil as a living thing that we need to care for, I think that's the more important thing.
Thank you for sharing this, Jørgen, that we need to build it into our mindset. We need to understand what is this all about. And we need to start maybe with the school children. That's a good place to start. Really good advice from both of you. And thank you for sharing experiences and pointing to specific actions that can be taken quite easily from all of us. Some of them also quite complex, though, I must admit. Thank you, both of you, for your leadership in creating change and giving inspiration today at this Global Food Talk. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So now I'm honored to move on in the program and to welcome our next two guests. And they will share concrete solutions and innovative approaches that address the critical challenge of working with healthy soils and advancing sustainable agriculture. On this second Fireside Talk, we'll drill into the actual practices and explore how businesses are driving impactful change. I'm proud to present the companies DLF and Agreena, where each company represents best practice solutions from vastly different perspectives in advancing sustainable practices to enhance sustainable and healthy soils. We have with us Mr. Derek Bartlem. He's a executive vice president at DLF. He's been this in 3.5 years. And before his time at DLF, Derek has had multiple positions working within science and agriculture. And with a PhD and a master's degree in life science from Hokkaido University in Japan, he has a solid knowledge for today's topic. DLF is a cooperative-owned company established in 1900. So it's a very old company. And today they are owned of approximately 3,000 Danish seed growers. DLF is a global leader in well-proven seed solutions that combine science, innovation, and application to support the efficient and sustainable cultivation of our planet. So DLF has 25 plant breeding stations and more than 40 experiment locations to ensure that their specific seeds are able to adapt to local needs and ensure yields. Also in this Fireside Talk, we have Mr. Simon Haldrup. He's the CEO of Agreena and has been this for the last 5 years. And previously, Simon has had an extensive career working commercially and strategically within digital solutions in the financial sector. Agreena facilitates transition to regenerative agriculture by supporting farmers generate and sell carbon credits. through this Agreena carbon program, the company enabled farmers to adopt sustainable practices that we have just been talking about, the principles in regenerative farming. And the program also includes advanced digital monitoring, reporting, and verification. These are the technologies that are activated. It's including satellite, imagery, and soil sampling to ensure the accuracy of carbon sequestration measurements. So with these words, I would like to welcome Mr. Derek Bartlem and Mr. Simon Haldrup. Please join me in the studio, both of you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And what an honor to have both of you following the latest speakers here in the studio. I think this was a great warm-up to you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I would like to start with you, Derek.
Yeah.
Please, could you share us some of the transformative solutions that you're working with in DLF?
Yeah, sure. So I think for some of the solutions for the soil health is anything that helps minimize the soil disturbance, the mechanical turnover of the soil, or improve some of the soil biodiversity. This is something we've been working on for quite a while. With the perennial species, so the plants that are growing over multiple years, they're having the roots deep into the soil and the deep rooting. So we have products that in that space there. Also working with the legumes and the clovers that fix nitrogen in the soil there, so helping to minimize the inputs and improving the interaction with the microorganisms in the soil.
Super. So I think we'll get back to you explaining just a little bit more about what this means,
Sure.
Derek. But we'll just take one question for you, Simon, as well, because Agreena is certainly an interesting business case in order to accelerate this transformation. So maybe you could just take us a little bit more on the business side. How can you, as a business, contribute to this transformation?
Well, I think it's a great question that I like to angle a little bit, because we can't do anything. It's actually only the growers that operates the land, the soils, that can do anything. So we are an enabler for them to transform, to transition into these practices. And how we try to help is really to overcome these kind of three main barriers that most growers, whether we operate in 20 countries and it's almost the same pattern we see across the board. It's really about social acceptance, it's about knowledge, and it's about financials. We do all of that by using digital tools to really help farmers understand how actually to adopt, how to change, how to implement a behavioral change, but also to, as you said in the introduction, using advanced technology to measure and verify the outcomes and try to help monetize that in a way to offset some of those costs that are inherently in implementing these practices.
Super, Simon, to take us on that specific journey with these 3 points. And let us just move back to you, Derek, because, I mean, you mentioned these specific, you mentioned the legumes, the perennial crops, the deep rooting as the natural tools for the growers, which we, of course, have to bring in the conversation because they are the real action takers on farm level. So, Derek, how do you see these new initiatives innovated by you at DLF? How do you see them implemented?
Yeah, I think it's seeing the plants as actually part of the solution. So when we're talking about improving the soil health, it's the plants that are interacting with the soil and they are part of the solution. One of the ways that we really see this implemented is through the use of mixtures. If I put it simply, I think we have a lot of the right products and it's about using them in a different way. So where we come from, rather than utilizing the field and then re-sowing the whole field, if we can keep through a refreshing of that pasture or that field there through the use of mixtures. So we have a combination of, and using different species in there. as an example, we have a very successful product that is a herb into the mixture there, which is part of the nitrogen management for the soil as well. So combined with some of the deep rooting species, which help with the soil aeration, some of the problems that were mentioned in the earlier talk, we really want to minimize that disturbance, but you do have other things that come along with it. So the aeration and then the use of, what I was trying to say is, in the mixtures, it's not that simple because then you also have competition. So figuring out how to use these in the right way as well.
And just to follow up on Simon's points, do you recognize these 3 points as maybe a barrier when you work with the growers? Simon mentioned the social acceptance, the management, the knowledge. Do you recognize these barriers?
I think that the farmers are very aware in general, and our customers and the end users, I mean, they are working with the soil. And they are very aware of this. And I think we need to keep a focus also on the farm profitability.
Yes.
And the ability, it's not so much the acceptance, I would say, but supporting the farmers also having that profitable business moving forward and growing our food. Yeah.
Of course. So Simon, you identified these 3 challenges, and you also mentioned that what you are presenting from Agreena's side is a digital platform which support the transformation. So in general, how do you see this digital approach creating a role in this area? Is it easy peasy or?
Obviously. No, I think the reason why digital has a role to play in this is primarily 2 things. One is that there are millions of farmers that have to change behavior. So while we're sitting here in a studio in the center of Copenhagen, there are millions of farmers out there that while being aware, still need to make substantial transformative decisions that both require new knowledge and entails cost and financial risks on already narrow margins. And therefore, that behavioral change is substantial and mass scaled. And in that, I think digital is one of the tools of the centuries that can actually make mass transformative behavioral change happen at rapid speed. Secondly, it's really about creating the data rails because we can talk about regenerative agriculture as one thing, but it's actually a whole toolbox of different practices that are best suited for different cropping systems, different environments, and really helping both implement and trace and document these efforts are instrumental to the entire supply chain. Scaling that without digital, I'm not personally a big believer of.
No, okay, I can imagine, of course, with your history. Derek, I mean, you're a scientist working with plants for so many years, so you really know what's going on in the soil. What do you see as the next big thing that you can provide to the farmers in order to create more healthy soil?
Yeah, for us, I see an important role for DLF and our business in the products and also in the use of the products for the new management, I would say, of what's actually needed. Continuing with the robustness as well. So whereas you may have to replace a plant or the field after 3 years, getting that to 6 years, as we heard earlier, it's not just about the soil, it's the whole system. And so the pest resistance, the survivability under the drought, that impacts the use of the soil. So a very strong focus on the products and the resilience of the products. Also at the same time, and it's, I am a scientist, and it's research and data to document the effects, and shifting us away from the words to actually data-driven solutions, I think is extremely crucial, and understanding the impact that the products are having both on the soil and in the soil as well.
So where do you see the biggest barriers in order to implement your products, these new breeding types?
Alignment of policy when we're talking about new technologies in the development process, certainly, and access to new technologies. I see the biggest barrier actually is the documentation of the effects and the availability of the data there. Because this is also new to companies as well, of having to understand and document these effects that are there. So I see one of the biggest barriers is making sure, not so much in the creation of the products, but also the use of the products, and really ensuring that they are used in a data-driven way for the solutions there, and we can document the effect and the impacts on the soil.
So is that your responsibility as a company, or I mean, we just heard Jørgen working with all this research and science.
No, I think it's a huge responsibility on the organisations and companies to actually embrace partnerships for this. And this is really one of the aspects, I believe, was also the trust or the social licence to operate there. And so it really does require the involvements of academia and also research institutes there for the independent validation and the data and the documentation of the evidence and the tools to measure it as well. I see that's very important.
This brings us to the tools again, Simon. Well, and we're not talking about the spade this time, as Jørgen was talking about in the earlier. No, now we're talking about the digital tools.
You know, digital tools are just an augmentation of the spade.
Yes, that's right.
So in many ways, with the company that has done the second most soil samples in Europe this year, so we're very familiar with the spade. But we use digital to augment it for scale subsequence. But I think it comes back to what there is. It's all about documentation and data in that. But I also suggest one thing, which is, while it's super important for academia and product development to go, we heard from the previous talkers, it's biology.
Yeah.
And just like human biology, you know, not so many years ago, it was natural to smoke. In many jurisdictions, it's not as natural, and we've accepted that's not. I think actually the first 3 or 5 cures we have to take to improve the soil health here are readily available. In many jurisdictions across Europe, the use of cover crops is less than 5% of covered area. So we don't have to do research to do that. So in many ways, while we need to keep pushing the boundaries of products, it's to a huge extent an adoption problem. And that comes back to the grower, it comes back to farm profitability, it comes back to knowledge and the social proof, because actually in many, farming is a community sport. And in many communities, the status quo is the reference point. So actually being an outlier, doing things different is challenging. And there I think ecosystems around the grower communities, whether it's input providers, whether it's through the supply chain, whether it's the financial ecosystem, all have a role to play in order both to incentivize, help, but also require this transformative change.
Thank you very much, Simon. So moving back to you, Derek, you are in the intersection, I would say, between research, business, and the grower. You are in the business, but you are also a researcher.
Yes.
What would be your best advice to other business leaders working in this intersection, where you come up with new products and solutions, you need to get them implemented, you need to secure an economical viable solution?
I think you just actually said it. It is aligning the sustainability with the value proposition. And recognizing that you are not just solving a single problem in there, whether it's soil health or whether it's related to climate, but you need to have a solving for the solution there or the system there where the farmer is actually interacting with. So for example, we have a very successful product in New Zealand where 40% less water use and much less pest resistance, requiring less inputs. But the reason it's also a successful product is because we've documented and shown it has a 46% increase to the value proposition to the farmer. So it's supporting that farm profitability while also bringing in that improved soil health aspect there as well. So they're clarifying and understanding what the system you're in and the value proposition is extremely important if we want to get these solutions embedded and more uptake. At the same time, because I think this is really important and it's important for us in DLF, is really embracing the partnerships. As we heard earlier as well, we've moved past the times where there's going to be a simple single solution. It's going to require whatever aspect we're talking about as we're moving forward into the climate change or the soil health as well. There's going to be multiple factors that have to come together to bring a solution and to lead to meaningful change, improvement. So we see ourselves as part of the solution with partners, so embracing collaborations for getting the documentation, for developing technologies for measurement, but also for the solutions as well. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Derek. So also you, Simon, a good advice for other business leaders who would like to take a serious action in creating change.
I think the good thing is that we're progressing from pilot mode to scale mode. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, soil health and regenerative ag was a cult. Today it's becoming mainstream, and the solutions are out there. So I actually think they're ready, whether companies are inside the supply chain, they're readily available solutions to act now. And I think even more important, whether you're in the early pilot mode to get going, but actually then going from pilot to scaling mode. But one word of advice is to always put the grower at the center, because if we forget the grower in all of this, then it will be for nothing.
Thank you very much for bringing in again, I would say the real action takers at farm level, the growers. Here at the end. Thank you very much to you, Derek. Thank you very much to you, Simon, for being with us. Sure. It has been a huge pleasure for you to sharing your specific solutions. I mean, we really went down below soil level. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for letting us be part of it.
So, I'm now ready to conclude on this fireside. And this Global Food Talk, it has been really, really inspiring for me to listen and to engage in all these specific, very knowledgeable people. And I really hope that today's Global Food Talk shows that new knowledge based on research, collaboration, innovative incentive models, and bringing the strong businesses and of course the growers at the center really has to be taking these are the steps to be taken in order to create the necessary steps towards more healthy soils. So this is the holistic approach that we need, and this is actually what we also was talking about in the start. Healthy soil is the foundation for sustainable food for all. And one key takeaway for me is certainly that soil health is not just about agriculture. It's about the foundation of food security, climate resilience, and sustainability. And it is like this no matter where you are in the world. Research, innovative technologies, cooperative practices, and partnerships are vital to improving productivity and efficiency in the agri-food sector. And this is at the same time we are safeguarding our soils for future generations. So this discussion reminds us that ensuring food for everyone starts with protection of the very ground beneath our feet. It requires a shared effort across businesses, policymakers, farmers, and researchers to find the solutions that works locally where you are. And let's take this forward and commit each other to action, fostering partnerships and continuing improving and innovate for a more healthy soil. I certainly hope that you also feel motivated and inspired to take the necessary steps and contribute to the green transition. And I hope that you have gained new knowledge and also motivation on how to implement sustainable practices. I hope you will follow the Food Nation social media channels and subscribe to our newsletter. This is how you will be updated on our future activities, upcoming events, and you can follow how we look at the green transition and sustainable development across the whole value chain. And with these words, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today, and I hope to see you again. Thank you very, very much.